Hello everybody, Pastor Steve here. Today is my word of encouragement video, but it's going to be less probably specifically about encouragement and more about instruction. I would like to talk about some terms that we have been using. You've heard us saying in sermons, and perhaps if you've been to leader meetings or staff meetings, you've heard us throw some terms around regarding, the way our church is governed or going to be governed. And so I want to clarify some of that. So this is going to be a little bit more like a Bible study lesson. As you have probably heard, our church is moving very intentionally towards the elder model of leadership. Now, we functioned that way at some level for a long time, but we're going to move more specifically and more intentionally towards a plurality of elders. That is what we want to do. And so you may be saying, well, what does that mean? I don't even understand, the difference. Well, there's three major types of church government, and I have a cheap graphic here. Rather than editing this video, I thought I would just show you my little sign that I made. So here we go. Here we have Episcopal. There is a pope or a bishop that oversees the church or churches. And so it's kind of a top-down model. You see this in the Roman Catholic Church. You see this, of course, in the Episcopal Church, in the Anglican Church. There's pros and cons to this model. One of the advantages is that the Episcopal model, there tends to be a lot of consistency from church to church. They all do things the same way. Another model is the elder model. Now, the reason I say Presbyterian there, episkopos means bishop or overseer. So the Episcopal model depends upon an overseer. The Greek word presbyteros means elder. So all Presbyterian churches are elder churches, but not all elder churches are Presbyterian. So here you see in this model that there are men seated around the table, and they make decisions as a council. They lead the church as a council. The third model is the congregational model, which is the one that Baptists usually use. Now, there may be elders, deacons, senior pastor in a congregational model, but all major decisions are vetted and voted upon by the congregation, usually in these regular member meetings. And then finally, I have here the senior pastor model. Now, the senior pastor model is like a sub-model. The senior pastor is like the hub in the center of the wheel who directs activity through the spokes. And those spokes may be elders or deacons or the congregation, but there's a strong central figure who presides over the church, and usually a person with a lot of energy and vision who directs the affairs of the church as a single individual. And so that can be true under several different models. So that's a super duper quick primer on the major ways that churches have been governed throughout history. The Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Anglican Church, the Lutheran Church, those are all examples of the Episcopal model of government. A lot of Reformed churches, the Presbyterian Church and other types of Reformed churches use the elder model, as well as a number of Baptist churches use the elder model, especially farther back in history. The congregational model is used by a number of different denominations, including the Congregational denomination, United Churches of Christ, and most Baptists in recent history. So the overwhelming majority of Baptist churches in the 20th century used a congregational model. So I hope that helps. So we're talking about a more intentional move to an elder model. You might say, well, what is an elder? As Jeremy has preached and will be preaching again, and as has been in our adult Bible study curriculum, we make the case that an elder is a pastor, is a shepherd, is a bishop. You see, for example, in Acts chapter 20, that all those terms, when Paul meets with the Ephesian elders, all those terms are used completely interchangeably. That the elder, shepherds, and pastors, the words shepherd and pastor are synonymous. The elder oversees. So overseer or bishop, the King James says, from the word episkopos. Those are all describing the same office. An elder is a pastor, is a shepherd, is a bishop. You may be asking yourself, what is a senior pastor? Because we're talking about an elder model, whether there may be a lead elder. And of course, we have the Pastoral Succession Task Force, which is tasked with seeking out a new senior pastor or lead elder. For what it's worth, every single term on earth has a semantic range. Think of words as circles rather than points. So even a word like dog has a semantic range. You could be talking about a canine when you say the word dog. You could talk about a problem that has been dogging you. You could be talking about food, a hot dog, or you could be saying, "What's up, dog?" So dog has a semantic range. And so the word senior pastor, or the term senior pastor, also has a semantic range. When some people say it, they just mean lead elder. But for Baptists, and particularly for our church and churches like ours for a long time, when the term senior pastor is used, that's describing something like the pastor. It's seen oftentimes as the man of God. It's really based on the concept of senior pastor is not, I would argue, not necessarily a New Testament concept. It's an Old Testament concept. So you have, Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. You have Joshua, who succeeded Moses, the man of God, and Joshua goes to the mountain and he hears directly from God, and then he goes back and commands the people, giving them God's instructions. That was the case with Moses, and that was the case with Joshua. And so the senior pastor model is something akin to that there is this singular, powerful personality, this man of God, through whom God authoritatively speaks to his people. When people look for New Testament support for that, they usually look to Revelation chapters 2 and 3 in the letters to the churches, where the Spirit says, write to the angel of the church at Ephesus or the church at Sardis and say, this is what the Spirit says. And so some interpreters, some Bible scholars think that angel, the word angel means messenger, and that's talking to the messenger of the church at Sardis, or the messenger of the church at Ephesus. In other words, the pastor. So people seek support for the senior pastor model from in the New Testament, from the book of Revelation, and this idea that there is a single messenger from God to each church. So when we talk about senior pastor, we're talking about that idea, the main pastor, the pastor. There may be deacons or elders or associate pastors, but there is one person kind of entrusted by God with the care of a church. Now, the problem is that doesn't really have a lot of support in the New Testament. In fact, that's quite opposite of what the preponderance of evidence in the New Testament teaches, which is consistently a council of elders. You see that among the apostles. You see that in the Jerusalem church. You see that in the church at Antioch. You see that in Paul's letters in the pastoral epistles to Timothy and to Titus. Again and again and again and again, what is portrayed in the New Testament is a council, a plurality of elders. So that really informs us then on how we should interpret Revelation chapter 2. And of course, the Old Testament is in the Old Covenant. And so God did not indwell the people then. And in the New Covenant, everybody is indwelled by the Spirit. Everybody has a direct access to God. The priesthood of believers is part of the New Covenant. And so there is no longer this single entity who hears directly from God and speaks to the people. We have the scriptures. We all have access to God now. So we are arguing that the senior pastor model, even though it's not unbiblical per se, does not have a basis in the New Testament. That the New Testament model is actually a plurality of elders. So when we say senior pastor, we are talking about this Moses figure, this man of God figure. And when we say elder, the word elder is interchangeable: elder, pastor, shepherd, overseer, or bishop. The Bible uses those terms interchangeably. So an elder is a pastor, and a pastor is an elder. And you might say, if we're talking about hiring a new lead elder or lead pastor, isn't that just the same thing as senior pastor, using different words? Isn't that just semantics? But the reality is, a lead elder is a very different concept than a senior pastor, at least the way senior pastor has traditionally been used by Baptists. Think of this graphic here of men sitting around a table. they're gifted differently. And one of them may have a stronger gift of leadership than the others. One may have a stronger gift of discernment. One may be a better preacher. One may have be a better counselor. One may have a stronger gift of administration. So the man with the stronger gift of leadership can be the lead elder, kind of the team captain, but he has no more authority or no more legitimacy than any of the rest of the elders does. It is a council of elders where each of them is an equal, and there is a leader among those equals. So when we use the word or the term lead elder, we're talking about a man who is sitting at a table with equals and is their leader by virtue of his gifting, not by virtue of his position, if that makes sense. And when we say senior pastor, we're talking about the traditional approach that many Baptist churches, and it's common in the Black church, it's common in Pentecostal churches, and even the mega church, where you have this singular figure who's like the hub in the middle of the wheel and directs the affairs of the church as the primary representative of God. So I'm hoping that little primer in terminology is helpful. I am certain that it will create more questions than it answers. And so we're hoping to do a lot of interaction via Bible study through our sermon series and in some upcoming meetings to help our church, process this. And really, we want you guys to come along with us and buy into the idea of a plurality of elders. So God bless.